right, so you want to really understand cancel culture, not just the surface stuff, but like its historical roots and how it's impacting things today. And what it all means, we're using Conrad Reicher's book, Shattered, How Cancel Culture Destroyed Free Thought, to guide this deep dive.
Hmm.
And Reicher doesn't hold back. He calls himself a red-pilled rational man. And he sees this book as like a direct counter to what he calls cultural Marxist influences. So we're talking feminism,
Yeah.
gender ideology, all of that. He even tells readers to leave 5-star reviews on Amazon, which is interesting.
Yeah, it is. It makes you wonder about his intentions a bit, right? Is he going for an objective analysis, or is it more about pushing a certain agenda?
Right. Good point. So to get us started, how does Reicher even define cancel culture?
Well, he describes it as public shaming and boycotting people for expressing views that a vocal minority finds unacceptable. Basically, it's about silencing dissent through social pressure and intimidation.
Okay. And he doesn't see this as just a modern thing.
Yeah.
He traces it back in history.
Yeah, exactly. He brings up historical examples like the French Revolution's Jacobins, who used the guillotine to get rid of opposition, and the Nazi Party, whose rise was fueled by propaganda and suppressing dissent.
So he's saying that this impulse to silence other viewpoints, it's a repeating pattern through history.
Yeah, that's it. He suggests it's a form of minority tyranny, where a small but very vocal group forces their will on everyone else through fear and intimidation.
Okay, interesting. So then where does social media fit into this whole picture?
Well, Reicher argues that social media has basically amplified cancel culture. He uses the example of Justine Sacco, who back in 2013 tweeted a bad joke about AIDS before a flight to Africa. And by the time she landed, the tweet had gone viral. And she was facing all this online outrage, and she lost her job.
Yeah. That's like the ultimate example of the dark side of social media's power.
Exactly. It showed how fast and how mercilessly someone can be punished for just one mistake, with no chance for context or redemption.
Yeah. Reicher digs into the psychology behind all of this too. And he talks about those classic experiments, like the Asch conformity experiment. Can you explain that one?
Sure. In that experiment, they had participants judge the length of lines, but they surrounded them with actors who were giving the wrong answers on purpose. And the results showed that a lot of the participants went along with the group, even though it was obviously wrong.
Wow. So they denied what they saw just to fit in?
Exactly. It showed how strong social pressure can be. And Reicher links this to cancel culture, saying that fear of social rejection can make people go along with the mob mentality, even if they privately have doubts.
That makes sense. He also talks about the Milgram experiment, right? That was pretty disturbing.
Yeah, it is in that one. Participants were told to give electric shocks to someone who was actually an actor pretending, but anytime they answered a question wrong, they got shocked. And what they found was that a really high number of participants were willing to keep giving stronger and stronger shocks, just because an authority figure was telling them to do it.
Oh, wow. So they were okay inflicting pain.
Yep.
Just because someone in a position of authority said it was okay.
Yeah, basically. And Reicher's argument is that we see this in cancel culture too, where people participate in the online shaming because they see certain people as authority figures.
It's like we're programmed to obey.
Yeah.
Even when it feels wrong.
Yeah, it seems like it. And this all leads to another psychological factor, which is groupthink.
Okay, so break that down for us. What is groupthink?
Yeah.
And how does it relate to cancel culture?
Well, groupthink is when the desire for group harmony becomes more important than critical thinking. And it ends up suppressing different viewpoints, so it creates an echo chamber where everyone's just reinforcing the same ideas, and anyone who disagrees is met with hostility.
Right, so people are so scared to stand out
Yeah.
that they just agree with whatever everyone else is saying.
Yeah, exactly. And Reicher says social media is the perfect environment for this because we tailor our feeds to our own biases, and then the algorithms just show us more of the same.
It's like we're all trapped in our own little bubbles. Now, Reicher spends a lot of time on this idea of cultural Marxism. What exactly is he talking about there?
Well, he uses the term cultural Marxism to describe a set of ideas that he thinks are behind cancel culture. He points to the Frankfurt School, which was a group of intellectuals who fled Nazi Germany back in the 1930s. And they were really interested in the relationship between culture, power, and ideology.
Okay, so what were some of their main ideas? And how does Reicher connect them to what's happening now?
So the Frankfurt School was really worried about how those in power stay in power, not just through force, but through like cultural influence. They looked at things like false consciousness, which is the idea that people can be tricked into believing things that are actually against their own interests.
So how does Riker see this false consciousness playing out today?
Well, he says it's happening through modern critical theories, especially those focused on race and gender. He sees movements like critical race theory and gender studies as pushing this divisive narrative that pits groups against each other and undermines traditional values.
And he even uses this term, repressive tolerance. What does that mean?
So that was a concept developed by Herbert Marcuse, who was a part of the Frankfurt School. Basically means that tolerance is only applied selectively to shut down certain viewpoints while pretending to be inclusive.
So it's like saying, we'll tolerate you as long as you agree with us.
Exactly. Riker says this kind of tolerance is actually a way to control people's ideology, where some viewpoints are just unacceptable and get silenced, even in a society that says it values free speech.
Okay. So how does Riker see this cancel culture impacting our institutions? He starts with the family, right?
Yes, and this is where his arguments get a little more intense. He thinks that feminism and gender ideology are a direct cause of the breakdown of the traditional family.
Okay. So what does he see as the problem?
Well, he says feminism has created what he calls a culture of gynocentrism, where women's needs are always put first, at the expense of men. And he sees this as leading to a decline in male authority and more families breaking up.
I see. And he's also critical of how gender ideology
Right.
is influencing how kids are raised.
Oh, absolutely. He believes that promoting gender fluidity and questioning traditional gender roles is confusing for kids and even harmful to their development.
So from his perspective, the traditional family is under attack.
Yes.
And he sees feminism and gender ideology as the main culprits.
That's his main point. And he applies the same critique to other institutions as well, like religion and education.
What are his thoughts on religion?
Well,
Like,
he sees religion as a source of moral guidance and something that holds society together. But he thinks it's been taken over by woke ideology, which has created a moral vacuum. That leaves us vulnerable to cancel culture.
so he's drawing a link between the decline of traditional religious values and the rise of cancel culture.
That's right. He says religion has been weakened by embracing these progressive ideas, and that's created a space for cancel culture to fill.
Interesting. What about education? How does cancel culture affect schools and universities?
He's very critical of what he sees as this dominance of woke ideology in education. He argues that schools aren't places where students are encouraged to think for themselves or challenge ideas anymore. Instead, they're being indoctrinated into a narrow worldview that shuts down dissent.
I see. He uses the term perversion of education to talk about this, right?
He does. He thinks that all the focus on things like social justice and identity politics and critical theory is pushing out more traditional subjects and creating a generation of students who are more worried about virtue signaling than actual intellectual rigor.
And he sees this in the way history is taught, too.
Yes, he says history is being rewritten to focus on the oppression of marginalized groups, and this creates a narrative of guilt and shame that undermines national pride and unity.
So he sees this deliberate effort to push a specific agenda in schools, and he's worried about the long-term impact of that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. He thinks this kind of indoctrination is making students intolerant of other viewpoints and unable to have reasoned debates.
Okay. Riker then goes on to discuss the role of technology in all of this. He traces it from the printing press to the internet and social media. Why does he start with the printing press?
Well, he uses the printing press as an example of how technology can be good and bad. On the one hand, it helps spread knowledge and ideas, which led to the Enlightenment. But it can also be used to spread propaganda and misinformation, which he thinks is what's happening today on a huge scale through the internet and social media.
So technology can be used to liberate or control.
That's right. And he thinks that in today's digital world, the forces of control are winning.
Interesting. How so?
Well, he talks about the rise of echo chambers and filter bubbles on social media, where people are only seeing information that confirms their biases. He says this is making us more polarized and less able to have real conversations with people who disagree with us.
Yeah, it's like we're all talking past each other. He also brings up the role of smartphones in cancel culture, right?
Yes. He says smartphones have made it easier for these cancel mobs to form and to act quickly, which leads to online harassment, doxing, and the spread of false information.
So he sees a link between smartphones and this culture of online outrage and mob mentality.
Exactly. He thinks the constant connection and the instant nature of social media have created a culture of instant gratification and outrage, where people are so quick to judge and condemn without taking the time to understand the context.
Okay. So we've explored the problem pretty thoroughly. What are some of Riker's proposed solutions? How do we push back against this cancel culture tide?
Well, he doesn't just leave us with a doom and gloom picture. He does offer some strategies for resisting cancel culture.
Okay, great. Let's hear them.
Well, one of big things is cultivating independent thinking. He wants readers to question the narratives they're hearing, to seek out different viewpoints, and to not just blindly accept information, just because it comes from sources they usually agree with.
So it's about thinking for yourself, doing your own research,
Yeah.
not just following the crowd.
Right, developing a critical mindset and being willing to challenge your own assumptions.
He also talks about promoting rational discourse.
Yes. He thinks we need to move away from all the outrage and personal attacks you see online and get back to having civil, reasoned debates.
So less shouting, more listening.
Exactly. He wants people to focus on evidence-based arguments, logical reasoning, and respectful dialogue, even with people you disagree with.
Makes sense. And he's a big advocate for supporting alternative media.
He is. He sees alternative media as this important counterbalance to what he sees as the bias and agenda of the mainstream media. He encourages people to get their news and information from sources that offer different perspectives and challenge the dominant narrative.
So like diversifying your media diet.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's about getting outside of your own little bubble and seeing a wider range of viewpoints.
Okay, so those are some things we could do individually. But does he have any broader strategies for addressing this issue on a societal level?
He does. He thinks we need to build communities, both online and offline, where people feel safe to express themselves without being afraid of getting canceled. He sees these communities as crucial for fostering open dialogue and intellectual diversity.
So it's about creating spaces
Yeah.
where people can debate and challenge each other's ideas
Yeah.
without fear of being punished.
Right. He sees these communities as like incubators for free thought, where the focus is on open inquiry, not on ideological conformity.
That's interesting. He also talks about the importance of directly confronting cancel culture tactics.
He does. He wants readers to speak out against it, to call out hypocrisy and double standards, and to stand up for people who are being unfairly targeted.
So not just ignoring it, but actively pushing back.
Exactly. He sees silence as being complicit. And he thinks if we want to protect free speech, we have to be willing to stand up to the people who are trying to silence dissent.
That goes back to his thing about the 5-star reviews.
Yeah.
It's like he's encouraging a kind of collective action to get his message out there.
Right. He's using the same platform he's criticizing to promote his ideas and build a community of people who think like him.
That's pretty clever. So to sum it all up, what are your main takeaways from this deep dive? What should our listeners be thinking about going forward?
Well, I think the main thing is cancel culture is complicated. It has deep roots, and it affects a lot of different things. It's not just about online shaming or political correctness gone too far. It's about really fundamental questions like free speech, tolerance, and how we engage with ideas in the digital age.
It's about who gets to decide what's okay to say and who gets silenced.
And it's about recognizing that this urge to silence people who disagree is nothing new. It's been happening throughout history. And we need to be careful not to let it happen, especially now, when technology gives those in power even more ways to control and manipulate us.
Yeah, for sure. Whether you agree with everything he says or not, Riker's book definitely makes you think.
Absolutely. It challenges us to be more aware of how we consume information, how we interact with people online, and how we contribute to the culture we live in.
Well said. So if you're interested in learning more about these ideas, you can check out Conrad Riker's book, Shattered, How Cancel Culture Destroyed Free Thought. It's available on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books. It's definitely a thought-provoking read. And as always, if you have your own stack of articles or research on a topic you want to explore, we'd love to help you take a deep dive. Just submit your materials on our website. We'll get you sorted. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.